And I want to read this for you. It's a great quote, but I need to set it up just a little bit. So you got to go back in your minds a little bit. Go back to 1945. 1945, after the atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, there was tremendous fear in the world. I mean, think about it. This had never been experienced before, about the existence of atomic bombs. We've lived with this reality our whole lives. Some of us had drills when you were kids at school, the atomic bombs. But think about 1945. There were tons of people alive who they never imagined such a thing. They're wrestling now with this idea that, one bomb could blow up that would just have that much power and that much destruction. That bomb that dropped on Hiroshima, I read this week, it immediately killed, when it hit and blew up, 80,000 people. You know, think about the numbers we're hearing with colds and flu. 80,000 incinerated in a moment. And then tens of thousands died due to radiation after that. So that's sort of the setup. At that time in history, C.S. Lewis was asked, how are we to live in an atomic age? And I think what he said is instructive for us today too. It was wise and insightful. So here's what Lewis said. How are we to live in an atomic age? He replied, why, as you would have lived in the 16th century, when the plague visited London almost every year. Or as you would have lived in a Viking age, when raiders from Scandinavia might land and cut your throat any night. Or indeed, as you're already living in an age of cancer, an age of syphilis, paralysis, an age of air raids, an age of railway accidents, age of motor accidents. In other words, what's he saying? Hey people, this death thing, this is not something new, right? This has happened. All through human history, things like this have happened. And then he said this, I think this is just a great perspective, obviously, from a brilliant mind. He said, if we're all going to be destroyed by an atomic bomb, let that bomb, when it comes, find us doing sensible and human things. Yes. Praying, working, teaching, reading, these are his words, listening to music, bathing the children, playing tennis, chatting to our friends over a pint and a game of darts, not huddled together like frightened sheep and thinking about bombs. Isn't that beautiful? That's such funny. That's why he's C.S. Lewis, and I'm not. And then one more sentence, he said this. Again, this is just the icing on the cake. He said, they may break our bodies. Any microbe can do that. But they need not dominate our minds. Isn't that true? Yeah. This health threat that we're facing, it's real. Obviously, it's real. We need to recognize it as real. We're taking all kinds of precautions, and that's reasonable, that's necessary. Absolutely, it's good. But we don't need to overreact. Yes. Nobody needs that. We don't need to live in fear and panic. That's never God's way. Amen. Fear and panic is never God's way. And we don't need to let this, C.S. Lewis words, we don't need to let this dominate our minds. So, two passages of Scripture. This first one, this is worth the price of it. This is worth it. You came just to hear this one. 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. Hallelujah. That's what God gives us. If you're walking around with a spirit of fear, that's not from God. That's not what He gives us. He gives us a spirit of power, love, sound mind. And then this one has to do with where our minds are dwelling. We have some control over this. Well, I can't control. No, we have a measure of control. Philippians chapter 4. And now, dear brothers and sisters, from the text, one final thing. Fix your thoughts. We have some control. Fix your thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. Think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. Philippians 4:8. That's where our minds need to dwell. Yes? Yes.